Hi guys, I'm Bri. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome to the 12 Days of Christmas series where I'm going to be posting every single day for the next 12 days. In today's video, we are going to be doing my everyday makeup routine. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So first things first is to prep. The specific routine that I'm going to be showing y'all today is for the winter time. My skin usually gets really dry during the winters, so I have to do a lot to moisturize it and retain moisture. So the first step that I'm going to do is moisturize. I'm going to go in with my Pond's Dry Skin Facial Moisturizer. You really don't need a lot of this stuff. Literally only during the winter time. I'm basically out of this, but I take this, it's actually a body oil, a collagen and coconut blend oil, and I take like the smallest bit just because not only does it help retain the moisture in my skin, but it also adds a nice glow. Alrighty, for the next step, which also isn't makeup related, is my edges. I just did my braids. They're so stinking cute. I swear every time y'all see me I have a new hairstyle, but that's just kind of who I am. I'm always switching up my hair. I'm just using this Cream of Nature Argan Oil edge control, and I'm just gonna apply that to my edges and then take my edge brush and do my edges, and I will be back when we're actually getting into the makeup. Alright, edges are done. Now, I go in with the same edge control. I usually use some type of edge control or gel for my brows because it honestly just works so much better. But very lightly, I am going to add this all in my brows. Once that's nice and coated, I'm gonna go through with my spoolie and brush all of my brow hairs upward. I try to get them to lay pretty flat, just like that. And we have a decent brow. Now I usually take a paper towel and kind of wipe around them because I can't stand mixing the residue of the edge control with my makeup and my makeup products. So I just take a paper towel or a Q-tip or a wipe and wipe around my brows just to make sure that there is no residue. As you guys saw before, that it was super shiny and sticky, but now it isn't. Now that we are done with that step, we are going to go in with primer. I use two different primers. I use the e.l.f. Power Grip first. I'm not gonna lie, I put this everywhere. So, put it everywhere. I rub this in. Now, the packaging says that you're supposed to pat in for 30 seconds, I believe, to use the product correctly, but this is the way that I do it that gives me the best results. I usually blend this all in this way, just by swiping my fingers across my face, trying to reach all of the area. Right after I rub it all in, I go in and I pat it. Now that I'm done with my first primer, I go in with my second one, and I use the Makeup Revolution Pore Blur Primer, and I just put like the tiniest bit of this on my fingers, rub it in, and I really concentrate this where I crease a lot, so underneath my eyes, the side of my nose, in the same motion as when we first applied the e.l.f. primer. And then same as the other one, I go in and I tap it. This stuff feels great. It literally feels like velvety almost. and it does such a good job. Like, pores where? It looks so good. Now while we wait for our primer to dry and get a little bit more tacky, we are going to go back to our brows. I take the e.l.f. Instant Lift Brow Pencil crayon, and I'm not sure what shade, but it's the darkest brown. And I usually go in, and this is where I fill in my brows. I usually focus it more so on the ends, because that's the part of my brow that needs the most help and that needs the most filling. Always make sure to brush out your strokes, guys. You can always clean it up afterwards, but make sure you're brushing out your strokes so that it doesn't look like you took a crayon and just drew it on your face. When you brush it out, it just helps it blend so much better and it looks more natural. All right, I will be back when I finish both eyebrows. I apologize about the lighting change. I had to turn the light on, the big light, because the sun is actually about to start going down in a little bit. So the lighting was getting a little weird in here. So I have the big light and my ring light on. But the next step that I usually do after my brows are all done, my Fit Me concealer in shade 35. This shade is a little closer to my skin tone around this time of year, so I put my concealer in these areas and it usually blends over the majority of my face just to even out my skin tone a little more. And with this, I blend with a beauty blender. Do not come for my beauty blender. It is old. It is dirty. Do not judge her. We're going to use it anyways. And with this, I take the beauty blender and I blend this all over my face. I usually try to avoid the area right underneath my eye and instead blend more so on this outer portion of my eye. I am not one of those girls who don't believe in putting makeup on their forehead, because I'm telling y'all this now, it looks a little weird. A lot of the times people match their makeup to their neck, which is fine, but then don't match it to their forehead. My forehead is always darker than the bottom part of my face, obviously because it's getting hit more directly by the sun. Once that's all blended out, we are going to go in with our second concealer. The second concealer that I use is the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer, and initially this was the shade Tan Sand, but I'm not gonna lie, y'all, we be getting a little creative around here, and I start mixing colors and mixing products. I literally wrote on here new color. So I'm not sure exactly what shade this actually is, but this is my concealer placement. T-zone, I am one of those people who put concealer on their eyelids because my eyelids are so veiny and I'd much rather cover them up. But I have concealer obviously on my eyelids, this middle portion of my forehead, right at the inner corner of my eyes, the corners or edges of my nose, my chin, and then also these two areas right here. When it comes to blending out my concealer, especially in my inner corners, I take a powder puff. I only have this round one, but I literally just fold it and blend in my inner corner. Make sure y'all are tapping and not dragging, but I blend this in my inner corner and right here on the side of my nose, just because, just like this placement here, it'll help brighten this area whenever I bronze or contour. Ta-da! And it looks so much more brightening. I just recently started using a powder puff to blend my concealer, mainly the concealer underneath my eyes. But I'm not gonna lie, guys, it was a really good choice because I feel like the powder puff is just perfect with the amount of product that should be on my face, so it soaks up all of the product that I don't need. And I've just found with a beauty blender, it's so much easier to smear rather than blend. So I've moved over to using a powder puff. It's blended out so well. Now the next step is contour. In the wintertime, I'm usually contouring instead of bronzing, only because I prefer the cooler tones more in the wintertime. So like I told y'all before, that I am a mixer and I'm gonna find the best shade for me. I usually mix to get my perfect contour shade because the bronzer that I have is really, really warm. I usually mix it with my lightest concealer and it gives me the most perfect contour shade that's not super warm. And I put this in all the same places that you would usually bronze or contour. I go down the sides of my nose, right underneath the tip, and right at the bridge, as well as this area and here on my temple. Key is to blend upward and into your hairline, just because it gives the best effect. Now we're gonna do the same to the other side. When you blend your makeup up and into your hairline, it gives you more of a snatched effect. I'm going to take the corner of my beauty blender and blend the side of my nose. And once I add my powder products is when I will really like snatch my nose. Now that that is done, we are going to move on to blush. I'm going to be using the e.l.f. Putty Blush in this shade. I'm not exactly sure what shade because it's rubbed off, but I take a pretty dense brush, tap it into there real good, and I apply this to the higher points of my cheek and sort of into the outer corner of my eyes. Like I said, when you apply and blend your makeup upward and into your hairline, it gives you more of that lifted look. Now that my blush is all applied, I go in with my last cream or liquid step, which is concealer again, with the Hydrating Camo Concealer, except this shade is light beige, and this is my lightest concealer color. And when I tell you I am very, 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 very light with this, and I put this right in my inner corners and my T-zone area, very, very lightly. And then once again, we're gonna blend it out with our powder puff. I try to be pretty precise about this concealer placement because I only want the brightening effect on the inner corners of my eyes. So I usually try to keep this in one place. Now that we're all done with all of our cream and liquid products, we're going to go in with our powder products. The first powder product that I go in with is setting powder. I use the Wet n Wild Photo Focus setting powder. I'm literally basically out of this, and I just take what's left on the lid. And I take this on a completely separate powder puff. I dip my puff into it, and then I pat off the excess on my hand, and then I take this right underneath my eyes to help blur it out. If y'all can see the difference, this is with the setting powder and without. With and without. I feel like it's a big difference. Whatever powder's left on it and put it everywhere. Once I'm done with that, I'm gonna go in with my Makeup Revolution. I believe this is like a brightening powder. and it's literally white and it's crumbled. Majority of the product that's gone out of this I didn't even really get to put on my face. It kind of just fell apart, but it's really good for brightening. I'm gonna show y'all. I take my powder puff and I dip it into here really well. Once again, I have it angled because this is gonna go underneath my eyes, but I focus this in the same areas where I focus my lightest and brightest concealer. And like I said, I'm patting, not dragging. Now I take this e.l.f. bronzer palette that's literally broken and a dense brush, and I tap into this kind of everywhere, wherever the brush lands. I really focus this on the outside of my face, more so towards the hairline area, to help bronze and deepen where I put the contour. The next area, I'm going to take this bronzer on my forehead to make it seem just a little bit smaller, and then underneath my chin to snatch my jawline. A little trick that I do that helps snatch me is I apply bronzer right in this area that's between my ear and my jawline, just because it helps create a little bit of a shadow. I'm going to take this same bronzer and put it on this angled fluffy brush. Pretty sure I got all of these brushes that I'm using from Miss A. They were literally $1. We have one in our mall, but I know that they have a website. I take this bronzer and I put this in the creases of my eyes. Then with the same brush, same bronzer, I go down the side of my nose. Now with this, I am a little more precise and I try to snatch my shit by making sure that I put these lines exactly where they need to be, because if you don't, your nose is going to be sideways, it's going to be crooked, and I am wanting to get the appearance of a smaller nose. Now you're going to blend this into your brow bone or your crease area with whatever's left on your brush. And you're basically just going to soften that up a little bit. Same like I applied the contour, the liquid contour, I'm going to put my powder bronzer in the same exact places. My next step is blush. I literally just use eyeshadow for blush. And for the winter time, I usually like to go in with this shade right here, because it's more of a berry color rather than this coral that I use during the summer. Lightly tap into that and apply this in the same place that I applied my liquid blush. Make sure you're blending into your hairline and upward. I know we look crazy right now. Trust the process. The last place that I like to put blush is right at the bridge of my nose, right where I put that line for my bronzer, my contour. Once that's all done and applied, I go in with a beauty blender and I blend everywhere just to make sure that all of the powders are mixing in well together. Usually in this step when I'm blending, I don't care, I'm not very precise. I just try to blend everything and make it mix well together. I usually try to blend along my nose the most because it's where I literally just put the bronzer and it helps soften up that line a little bit. We're almost done, but the next step that I do is highlight. Taking this same eyeshadow palette, Profusion Cosmetics. I don't know, I have no idea where this came from, but As you can see, I love this shade a lot. This is the shade that I use for my inner corner, and it's the brightest glitter white gold shade. And I dip into here a couple of times, and then I dip into the brightest lightest pink, only because I love a pink highlighter. Tap that off a little bit, and I apply it right to my inner corners. After I apply it with a brush, I usually go in with my finger just to soften it a little bit. Then I go in with a fluffier brush and I dip into the same two colors, as well as this gold and this more pinky color. And I put it here on the high points of my cheeks, as well as the brow bone, the bridge of the nose, and my cupid's bow. Now, for the tip of my nose, I usually go in with the same colors that I use for my inner corner, the more pinky tones, and I put this right at the tip of my nose. You don't want to do too much because you don't want to look like a bell pepper or a Rudolph, since we're in the spirit, so I usually blend that and soften that a little bit with the tip of my finger. Using the same palette, I like barely tap into the black and then into the darkest brown with a flat angled brush. And I angle this here on the side of my eye. What you're gonna want to do is follow this line right underneath your eye where your waterline is, and just go straight out. And it creates a little bit of a wing. I cannot skip this step because if I do, I feel like my makeup looks weird. Once my wings are created, I just drag the rest underneath my eyes. Lately, I haven't really been into wearing mascara because I've been wearing my lashes, so I don't even bother with bottom mascara because I feel like it looks a little weird. Onto our final step, our lips. I take the Ordinary hyaluronic serum, and I take the smallest bit onto my lips. I mainly focus it though here on the bottom part of my lip, and then right where my cupid's bow is, and I let that sit on my lips for a while I go back and blend all over again. I like to make sure my makeup is blended as well as possible because I have been that person to go out with their makeup not blended. I'm not even kidding. While I've been out before, I've had somebody ask, "What's that brown line underneath your chin?" I'm sorry, excuse me? So now I like to make sure there's no brown lines, there's no lines. The hyaluronic acid serum from The Ordinary actually acts as a little bit of a plumping agent, and it gives my lips a little bit of a plump. But I take this, what is this? By Absolute New York. Either way, I use this end as my lip liner, very lightly. I feel like it gives me the perfect tint. Then I go in with this lip crayon, I guess. It's also from Miss A. It was $1, and I use this to line the outside of my lips. Then I take this really old, definitely expired lip product. I'm not even sure what brand this is, but I take the lip gloss side. My mom gave it to me. And it's in this lighter pink shade. And I use this to blend the line between brown of my lip liner and the pinky red shade that I put on my lips before. Once that's done, my final step is lip gloss. Usually one from the beauty supply store. Alrighty guys, and this is the final makeup look. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of our 12 Days of Christmas. I hope y'all tune in for the rest of the days that I will be posting, and I will see y'all later and tomorrow with the next one.